Hey guys, Syrian here, and I have decided to put together a fairly comprehensive guide on a number of gameplay tips that I use regularly, particularly in pickup groups when I'm not playing with friends, which isn't that often anymore, but hopefully a number of people will find these helpful. And I'd like to say beforehand that I'm not the greatest speaker on the mic, but I think I'll have a better time explaining some of the points I want to cover using voice chat rather than text, because there are some quite complex things I want to convey which wouldn't be very easy using basic text chat. Now, something I want to cover before we get started on everything else is something I feel that is really important, and it's reload cancelling. Now, whatever you feel about reload cancelling, whether you think it's an exploit or whatever, the fact is that it's been confirmed by the developers as a legitimate game mechanic that good players will make use of, and really it's very easy to get used to if you put a little bit of effort into it. It really shouldn't take you that long to get used to it, and it will save you a lot of time, particularly with weapons like a claymore or a javelin. Now, basically, I'm speaking for PC players here. Obviously, Xbox players and PS3 players won't be able to do this, but what you do is you bind a key that is close to one of your hands to the Medigel button, and I'll show you here. You reload. The second the extra round hits the chamber, you hit the key and it just cancels the rest of the animation. Now, without reload cancelling, that's how long it takes. With reload cancelling, you can see it's much faster, and really all it takes is just a bit of practice to get into the rhythm. You can use several cues. You've got you can either, if you have to, you can watch the ammo counter out of the corner of your eye to see when it switches over. You can see in general, once the gun starts smoking, the ammo's been replaced. Most guns make a click that you can also use to tell, but eventually if you use a gun enough, you'll just get used to the feel of it and you won't even need to think about it, and it's really useful, and it's probably one of the most important things you can learn to do in this game. So let's just get right into it. The first thing you want to know is what enemy you're fighting, because it allows you to determine your playstyle, and you can choose your class and weapon based on the enemy and the map you're likely to get. Now, say you're doing an unknown gold, this has different implications for that situation, because you then need to choose a class and a weapon combination which you feel you can handle any situation against all four factions with. There's no point going into it picking a class and weapon that you're only going to be comfortable playing one faction with, because chances are the game will screw you over and give you the faction you don't want. So for example, say you're gearing up for an unknown gold, what you take will depend on your comfort level as a player, whether if you don't feel comfortable, like you don't feel you can deal with phantoms on gold without certain weapons, then you should invest in a sidearm like an acolyte or a scorpion, something to deal with the phantoms, or choose a different class, something something that can deal with phantoms. Basically, be prepared for any situation and be prepared to handle all four factions equally well, or at least as close as you can get. Now, as you can see, as soon as I get into the game, I take a quick look at the enemy I'm facing, so I know what to expect, and then I run to a position where I feel comfortable starting the wave. That's pretty important, because it's something that you want to try to do. You want to get a few positions on each map where you're reasonably close to spawn points, but not so close that you make them spawn in other locations. So you want to be able to attack the spawn when they arrive, but you don't want to block them off so that they don't spawn there, and you also don't want them to spawn and insta-kill you like the game likes to do. So if you do this, then when the wave starts, you can run to the nearest spawn, which you're comfortable knowing where it is and knowing how you can attack it without being attacked in return. We'll cover that a bit more later. But basically, it just it helps to get your radar set. You know where the enemies are until you kill them off and they respawn, and then you go hunting for the next spawn. It's just something so you have your bearings at the start of each wave, and it helps quite a bit in the long run. And what I want to cover now is probably the easiest thing you can learn in terms of how much it will improve your gameplay. Because it's a very simple thing and it's very easy to do. It's just using soft cover. It's using the terrain to your advantage. It's basically exploiting a game mechanic where the enemy can't shoot you, but you can shoot them. Usually it's in the form of right-hand advantage, where there is an object on your left-hand side and you can shoot through around it basically, but the enemy can't shoot you. And there are also other forms of soft cover which I'll point out later. Basically, it's very, very simple. You want to I use a basic rule of get to a point where there's an object in between me and the enemy's gun hand, which and that rule generally holds true for all enemies. I can't really think of any that it doesn't apply to. Basically, if you have the enemy's gun hand blocked off by some sort of object, then they're not going to be able to shoot you very easily. But you can still shoot them because of how the game mechanics work. Nearly as important as using soft cover is knowing when your opportunity is to attack. The enemies have very predictable animations in this game, and as you can see here, there's a marauder about to do a buff on a husk, and while he's doing that, he's not going to be shooting me. Now, it seems like a fairly simple thing, but usually the enemies, while they're doing one animation like a dodge roll, or in this case the marauder buffing a husk, or a stagger animation if you've staggered them with a power like proximity mine, they won't be able to shoot you or damage you, which gives you plenty of opportunity to kill them with whatever weapon you're using, or powers if you're using power class. Something that unfortunately isn't illustrated very well in this video is something I'll talk about now, but basically it's using your movement to the best of your ability. It's particularly helpful when you're playing on a squishy class like a Geth Infiltrator, but basically you never want to be running in a straight line to the enemy. That is, if you're running away, you don't want to run in the one direction in a straight line away from your enemy. It's exactly the same as if you're running towards the enemy. You want to move diagonally rather than and at an angle where it makes it difficult for the enemy to shoot you. The AI targeting in this game is pretty accurate, but it's not pinpoint accurate. It has some margin for error, and it will miss more often if you run at an angle to the enemies rather than just running in a straight line towards them. You can actually, if you're on a very fast class like a Drell with an adrenaline module, you can basically dodge bullets, as crazy as that sounds, which is very useful for the squishier classes with movement speed bonuses like the Drell, the Geth characters, and characters like them. Now, a lot of people tell me that the hardest thing they find in unknown games is dealing with the objective waves, and it can be pretty tricky at times, but I'm going to give some general advice. In this case it was a hack, but the advice holds true for most of the objectives, the escort and the pizza objectives as well. Basically, never be afraid to leave the hack circle or the escort temporarily, so you can kill some stuff and come back to it, like I do in this hack. Leaving it for a few seconds to run out and kill some cannibals or whatever that are incoming can save you later on in the hack, because they'll have to respawn somewhere further away, and they're still bearing down on you, but they're further away and they won't be able to rush you so quickly. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that they have to stay in the hack at all times, and it's just, I mean, most hacks, you just can't hold the hack properly unless you spam rockets, and that's not very efficient. Basically, you want to treat the hack as if it's something that you can always come back to, because you've got 5 minutes, and it's a reasonably long time. You can see here, I leave the circle quite a few times, and I always come back to it, and the hack gets done with minimal difficulty. I spoke about soft cover a bit before, but I basically just talked about right-hand advantage. There are actually, if you keep a sharp eye out, you can see lots of opportunities for soft cover during your gameplay. Here you can see I'm using the stairs and the little barricade so that I can shoot the cannibals, but they can't actually shoot me. And it's really, wherever you see an opportunity to position yourself where the enemy can't see you, that is, where you can't see their gun hand, you should do it, because especially in a PUG, you want to play it a bit safer than you would with friends. You don't want to go dying unnecessarily. So it's just best to get into the habit of always using soft cover where it's available. There's no reason not to. The lag. Now, that's one thing it's very important to get used to. Basically, if you're playing with random people, you can never anticipate how much lag you're going to get. I'm going to guess that most people don't get as much lag as I do, because I feel sorry for them if they do, but you're going to be pretty lucky to get a non-laggy game unless you host your own games. Well, a game that doesn't lag at all. You always want to account for lag. That means doing dodge moves earlier, moving into cover before you would normally, to prevent the damage that you're about to receive. Just little things like that can save you when you're lagging more than you expect or whatever. I usually like to, at the start of a game, I run to the ammo box after shooting a bullet and see how long the ammo takes to refill, and I can judge how much I'm lagging based on that. Now, this is a really important one that I see a lot in random games. Basically, people, either they don't want to use their gel, or they just think that their teammates will be able to finish the wave for them. For me, that's a very bad policy, in my opinion. Never count on your teammates to do it for you, to solo the rest of the wave, unless you're talking with them and they've told you that they can, of course. But most people in PUGs don't talk, so even if you suspect there's still a bit left in the wave budget, you want to use your gels, because there's no reason not to. If you're not playing to win the game, what are you playing for? So the other point is that if you die and you don't use a gel, the game is just then completely out of your hand. Whatever happens from then on is all entirely down to your teammates, and that is a position I hate being in personally. I don't know what other people feel about it, but I imagine they would feel the same way. Now, I know a lot of people seem to complain about people not reviving them during a mission, but I'm actually going to give the advice here that if you're too far away from a revive to make it reasonable to get there, or if that revive compromises your own safety, I would not revive, not go for that revive, on the basis that you can't control what happens if if it's a 50-50 revive, that you might get him but might die as well. It's just not worth it. You can, at worst, they use a gel, or they just die. So go for revives where you can, but don't go out of your way to ninja revive unless you particularly want to. Now this advice here is only applicable to infiltrators, but you can see here a good example of it. If you've used a cloak, you never want to waste that cloak cycle. So here I cloaked to revive a person, I revived him, and then as I decloaked, I shot a proximity mine at the nearest enemy and started shooting it, making the use of the 2.5 seconds of damage bonus that I used. It just results in more efficient killing, and also, particularly if you're reviving someone in a hot area where there are enemies around, if you can, like if you're a Geth infiltrator, I'm using Geth infiltrator in this video, so for example, if I was to cloak, revive, and then just run away, I wouldn't be doing my teammate as good a service as if I cloaked, revived, shot a prox mine at the nearest enemy, staggered it, and killed another enemy to make the guy getting up not get the infamous people's elbow from a marauder or whatever as he's trying to stand up from being revived. Probably one of the biggest mistakes I see random players making is focusing on the bosses right at the start of the wave. It's just natural, I guess, human nature to focus on the biggest threat, but it really is not the right way to approach playing. Basically, you want to do the opposite. You just want to leave bosses till absolute last, and because most of the bosses, the banshees, the primes, and the atlases, they're very predictable, and most of them are slow. The banshees aren't really slow, but they can all be avoided just by running away from a different side of the map. Find a different bunch of enemies to kill, keep killing them until the bosses are the only things left. Then you can kill the bosses without having to worry about all the little things coming up and shooting you in the back. Little mini tip here, wherever possible, dodge banshee warps and atlas rockets and the like by getting into hard cover, because it works much more reliably than doing a dodge move, like a Geth hop or a combat roll or whatever, and pretty much, unless you're lagging badly, 9 times out of 10, getting into the cover will negate, at very least, the initial damage. You might still get the damage over time from the banshee warps or whatever, but it's puny compared to the big burst damage up front that you'll avoid. Some more advice for objective waves, when in this case it's a disable the 4 objectives. They're probably my least favorite ones because they require someone to be completely inert for 10 seconds at a time, and there are 4 of them, very annoying. But here you can see I could have gone and got the objective, but I didn't. Now, you might get accusations of, oh, you're a score hog, you only care about is getting the score. But no, the reason I didn't is because I saw the group of enemies who were spawned in the corridor here could very easily come and kill me while I was getting the objective. But I saw also that my teammates were getting the objective, which means that if I can keep the enemy off of them more easily than they would keep the enemy off of me, then I'm probably going to leave the objective to them, and that's basically my policy for doing objectives like the disable 4. If I have more killing power than my teammates, then and we're each equally able to get a disable 4 objective, then I'll probably leave it to whoever has the least killing power in the group. That might sound a bit mercenary or whatever, but that's just the way it goes. That's the logical way to play, basically. You want to be able to keep the enemy off of your teammates while they're doing the objectives. Some people might accuse you of not being a team player because you're killing stuff and instead of getting the objective, but in my opinion, you're keeping the enemy from stopping your friends getting the objective, so you're being just as much a team player as they are. Speaking of objectives, you really want to do them as soon as possible. As soon as the wave starts, you want to find the objective and do it as quickly as possible. The reason is because while the objective is still up, the wave budget is infinite. If you kill enemies, they'll just keep on respawning over and over again, and you'll never get anywhere. But the second you do the objective to completion, the wave budget will cut off right there, and you can just progress to the next wave really easily. Now I'm hoping that this should be, common knowledge to everyone, innate human sensibility, whatever. But basically, you always want to revive your teammates if you're able to. Don't be, even if they've died several times in quick succession, don't be, oh, what are you doing? Stop dying, whatever. Unless they're deliberately trying to be annoying, anyone is capable of having a bad game. I mean, I know I've died, 5 times in a row, and it's very embarrassing, very annoying. But there's nothing worse than having that happen and also not having your teammates there to help you out. So now that we've had our little world peace lecture there, we can get back to the gameplay. And in this case, I just want to say you don't, if you're someone who, I know a few people like this, not mentioning any names, but if you instantly gel the second you go down, whether that be because you're embarrassed or you're trying to keep up the score or whatever, don't do that. It's not helpful to your team really, especially if you run out of gel early in the match and then don't have any fill later waves. Your teammates can usually get you. Wait until a reasonable period has passed before you gel, because chances are your teammates will get you before you bleed out on most occasions, at least in my experience. So fitting right in with the revival advice theme, we have don't try to go for revives before you kill off threats. If there's a person lying on the ground in front of, a few marauders or whatever, unless you're an infiltrator, then chances are you're not going to be able to revive them before you get gunned down. It's worse to have someone try to revive and end up with 2 people on the floor than have to have one guy use a gel because the other person was fighting off the 10 million marauders or whatever. So kill off the threats, then go for the revive if you're still able to. Doing it the other way will just result in pain and failure. Now, I'm not sure how this particular snippet of advice will be received, but basically, I would always advise against camping. Now, I have nothing against campers. If that's the way you like to play, then fine, I respect your decision, but it's not the way I play, and you're, in my opinion, you will be a better player if you don't camp. The reason is that in practice, you can never hold the same position for the entire game. It just won't happen. There are too many things that go wrong, And if you get into the habit of trying to hold the one position for the entire game, then when objective waves come along or something goes wrong, you're not really equipped to deal with the situation that doesn't involve camping and holding that area. Now we're getting into the slightly more technical side of the guide, but basically, if you have a power that can debuff or prime enemies or whatever, where possible, always prime the target before using a detonating power like proximity mine or whatever on it. It seems like pretty simple advice, but I mean, even I don't follow it as rigorously as I should. Basically, just the timing of the way you do things, like here I'm using a Geth Infiltrator with incendiary ammo, so if I shoot the proximity mine and then shoot, I'm not going to do as much damage, even though the proximity mine debuffs, as if I shot my gun, primed the target for a fire explosion, and then proximity mined it and continued firing. It's a thing that's applicable to most characters. Like a Vanguard, if you have Disruptor ammo on, you shoot a target and then charge it, you'll get a tech burst from the Disruptor ammo, that sort of thing. Basically, wherever possible, prime the target before you shoot it or hit it with another power. Now this is the worst feeling in the game for me. You feel like you've let your teammates down, or at least I do, by getting grabbed. Now I'll admit, while I was recording this, I was listening to music and I didn't hear the banshee coming up on me because I had the game muted, so that was pretty lazy of me. But I also didn't check behind me. You really, instant kills, I think they're very cheap, but they're a part of the game, and you really want to avoid them as much as possible because, you know, it seems like obvious advice, but they can end a game just so quickly. And the number of pickup groups I've had where the whole thing went smoothly before I got grabbed once on one wave, and then it was just a disaster from there. And you can see in this situation, the players here, no disrespect meant to them, but I mean they tried their best and everything. They managed to clutch the wave, and I commend them for that. But they struggled, and most pickup groups will struggle to clutch a wave with less than 4 people. You know, even if there's not very much left in the spawn budget, in my experience, 90% of pickup groups, if I wipe, you know, if I get grabbed, will just wipe because they either die and instantly bleed out, or, you know, there was a leecher in the group and the other 2 couldn't do it, or whatever, that, you know, someone lags and gets grabbed, and then it just snowballs, and it's a really bad situation when you get grabbed. There's nothing you can do, so you want to avoid it at all costs. And now that adventure's over, we can get back to the gameplay. Another quick tip, make use of combat rolls and side hops and stuff like that, even if you think you'll still get hit, because they give damage reduction, fairly substantial damage reduction, and it can mean the difference between, you know, getting your shields broken and getting killed by damage over time or gunfire or whatever, and saving some of your shield when you desperately need it. And this is a really important one. I see it so many times, people trying to power their way through enemies. You know, there's 2 banshees and a brute and a ravager and 3 marauders or whatever, and people trying to meet them head on and, you know, get through them to an objective or a revive or whatever. You know, you've got more time than you think in this game. You can always go a different way. You know, even if you change direction several times to avoid the threats, you've got more time than you think, and it's better to run away and find a different route than to, you know, get killed trying to brute force your way through too many enemies. Now, knowing when to use your rockets is it's not really something that can be taught. It's just something you need to make a judgment on based on your intuition, see how the situation's going down. And this situation was pretty obvious. There was a guy on the ground, he was swarmed by banshees, brutes, and ravagers, everything. So, you know, I just pulled out the rocketed it so we could get up and we could continue. It's not something I was doing thinking, you know, oh, I'll be a hero and I'll, you know, get all the plaudits or whatever. It was just that, you know, that's what's best for the team. So, but also, rocketing a group that big helps deplete the spawn budget really quickly. You know, so if you're feeling confident with the group you're in, you can even use rockets when they're not as necessary as usual. Like if you see an opportunity for a kill streak with a rocket, you can speed up your game substantially by rocketing that group. You have to be fairly quick thinking about it, but it's pretty useful. I spoke earlier about rage gelling, but I didn't cover when you should gel, even if you think your teammates might be able to get you. And in this situation, I was lying on the floor, and I'd just been nearly sync killed by a banshee, because again, I wasn't listening. And I knew there was tons of stuff around me, or at least near me, and I didn't think my teammates would be able to get me without putting themselves in serious danger. So I did the right thing by them and revived myself. It's just something, again, you have to make a judgment on it. Nobody can teach you when you should gel and when you shouldn't. Obviously, gel before you bleed out, of course. But if you think you're going to place your teammates in too much danger by not gelling, if there's tons of stuff on you, let the stuff walk away a bit. If possible, communicate to your teammates that you'll be okay and you can gel. And then do the right thing by your teammates. Don't make them put themselves in danger and possibly wipe the mission because you wouldn't gel. Now again, some more advice for a Disable 4, particularly useful in wave 10 or when there are really fast enemies. If you think you're going to if you're the one doing the objective and you think you're likely to get swarmed around the same time as you complete or as you're getting close to completion, then take out your missile launcher, because say you've got a banshee teleporting in at you, you just finished the objective, and the banshee teleports right next to you. If you don't have your missile launcher out, you're going to get grabbed and killed, and the rest of the wave will be out of your hands. So it's just a good policy to have it as a panic button if things get out of hand. Again, with the Disable 4s, I'm probably covering them quite a bit because I find them very annoying myself, and I imagine everyone else does. In this situation, I didn't start the Disable 4 because there was a Ravager pointing right at it, and if I'd started it, it would have probably killed me before I could finish. And if that's the case, there's just no point even starting it. You don't want to start an objective that enemies can still see you and hit you while you're doing it. It's better to... You've got 5 minutes, it's quite a substantial time. You can take your time to kill off some of the enemies, rocket if you need to, and then start doing the objective when the area's clear of enemies, or if your teammates can hold off the enemies while you're doing it. Well, this is probably something I should have covered earlier, but basically you really need to know how to kite your enemies around, and by that I mean keeping them at a distance, particularly with melee enemies. Keeping them at a distance where they can't hurt you, but you can still hurt them fairly easily, and being able to do so while, always having an escape route planned, sort of thing. You don't want to just be backing mindlessly. You could be, walking into a banshee or whatever. Check your surroundings as you're running around the enemies. Make sure you don't get flanked, because if you do, you're likely to die. Now this one is probably the most infamous rookie mistake, which is camping the landing zone during extraction. It's probably the worst thing you can do during extraction, because the spawn budget is infinite and the enemies just spawn very close to the landing zone, and they'll just keep coming no matter how many rockets you use. So you don't even have to kill anything on extraction. All you need to do is survive those 2 minutes, so you can run wherever you want on the map. If it's a big map like Giant, you can run to the complete opposite side and just sit there waiting, doing nothing, just chilling out until there's 20 seconds left, and then you can run back to the landing zone with a few seconds to go. It really doesn't matter what you do on extraction. You can kill stuff if you like. You'll generally end up killing stuff that you find, but whatever you do, don't camp the landing zone, because it's just a way to it's basically a death trap. There's no point in doing it, and kiting the enemy around, not killing them here and there is very easy to do. You just need to be aware of your surroundings, aware of what enemies are nearby, and don't get trapped. One final thing, which is sort of related to the previous 2 points, you really need to know when to fall back if you're being flanked, like I was here. Basically, there's no shame in running away, of course. If you are facing, if enemies are coming at you from 2 sides, that's not ideal. You want to find a better area where you can either, engage them at a longer range, or engage them as they come at you from one direction rather than from multiple ones. Well, that's about it. I hope everyone who watched it gets something out of it. It's more a gameplay guide for the intermediate players who are looking to take their game to the next level, as corny as that sounds. The beginning players will get less out of it than the intermediate players or the advanced players or whatever, but I still think there are some good tips in here for people of all skill levels. I hope this guide has helped you, and I hope you can put it to good use. Thanks for watching.